The air was thick at Shechem. King Rehoboam stood on the platform with a choice: speak life or speak death.
My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke! To your tents, O Israel!
He opened his mouth and tore a nation apart. To your tents, O Israel! The United Kingdom of David and Solomon was gone. But this tragedy didn't start on that platform. It started years before, hidden in the shadow of gold and glory. To understand the break, we have to look at the burden. We love the stories of King Solomon, the wisdom, the Queen of Sheba, the gold like dust. A true golden age. But gold is heavy, and someone has to carry it. We often miss the fine print because we get dazzled by the shine. Solomon built a breathtaking temple, but he also built a massive palace for himself that was even more extravagant. And who did the work? Mostly the northern tribes. 1 Kings 4 gives us a crucial detail. Solomon organized the land into 12 districts to feed his court, each providing for 1 month. But Judah, his own tribe, was left out of the tax list. The north paid the bills, the south reaped the benefits. And it wasn't just food, it was bodies. Solomon created a forced labor system the Bible calls a heavy yoke. That's not a metaphor. It's farming talk for an animal tied to a plow. Solomon was treating his own brothers like captured enemies. I want to stop here for a second. Have you ever worked for a leader who cared more about the project than the people? If you have, you know exactly what these tribes were feeling. Let me know in the comments if you've been there before. He appointed Adoniram to run his labor force. Remember that name? Solomon drafted 30,000 men to cut timber in Lebanon, 1 month on, 2 months off. Imagine you're a farmer in Ephraim. It's the 3rd month, your name is called. You have 3 days to say goodbye to your family. You are heading to Lebanon to cut timber for the king's palace. You work 1 month there, come home for 2, then go back. That's 4 months, a year you are gone. And this wasn't one family. This was 30,000 men. Every year, for decades. God warned Israel that an earthly king would take their sons and fields. Solomon became their ultimate taker. The contrast with Jesus is mind-blowing. Solomon said, work for me so I can be great. Jesus said, I came to serve you so you can be free. Solomon put a heavy yoke on the people, a farming term for an animal tied to a plow. Jesus says, take my yoke upon you, for my yoke is easy. One king hates you to build his kingdom. The true king was had to build you. By the time Solomon dies, the golden age is a powder keg. The people are tired, hungry, and used. They look at Jerusalem and see their own poverty. The temple had become a symbol of oppression, and it wasn't just the labor. In his last years, Solomon turned to foreign gods, building shrines to idols there in Jerusalem. The spiritual foundation was rotting just as fast as the physical one was being built. He hands this legacy to his son, Rehoboam, a shiny kingdom with a rotten foundation. Rehoboam inherits this mess at 41. He's not a kid, but he's grown up in the palace, never feeling the whip or missing a meal. He doesn't see people, he sees resources. That blindness is about to cost him everything. Now, before I go any further, if you like what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from this message. Word of mouth referrals like these really help to grow the channel. You can also hit the super thanks button, the heart-shaped $ in the lower right-hand corner, and tip me in proportion to the value you believe you've received from this episode. It's your donations that make all of this happen, and I really appreciate your support. Now, back to the fun. Picture this, thousands of people gathering in the dust at Shechem. The sun is hot, the tension is thick. They've traveled from the north. They are waiting. And then Rehoboam arrives. So the big day is here. But notice where they meet. They don't go to Jerusalem. There's a huge red flag right there. Jerusalem is the city of David. That's the seat of power. It's where the throne is. But the northern tribe don't go to the king. The king has to come to them. They meet at Shechem. Now pause for a second. This isn't just a random GPS location. Shechem is deep. This is where Abraham built his first altar. This is where Joshua renewed the covenant with God. This is where the blessings and the curses of the law were read. By dragging Rehoboam out to Shechem, the tribes are making a statement. They are saying, we are going back to the roots. We are checking if you are a covenant king or just a tyrant. The ground itself was testifying. And standing at the front of the crowd is a man named Jeroboam. You have to appreciate the irony here. Jeroboam had been one of Solomon's top guys. Jeroboam had been one of Solomon's top guys, a superintendent of forced labor. He knew the system because he helped run it. But he had turned against Solomon and fled to Egypt. Now he's back. Do you see the pattern? A deliverer comes out of Egypt to confront a king who is acting like Pharaoh. God loves these patterns. It's like history rhyming with the Exodus. So Jeroboam and the assembly dropped their request. And honestly, it's surprisingly reasonable. They don't say step down. They don't say we want a democracy. They say your father made our yoke heavy. Now therefore, lighten the hard service and we will serve you. Check that out. They offered him loyalty on a silver platter. We will serve you. They wanted a king. They just didn't want the monster. They used that specific word, yoke. They weren't just complaining about long hours. They were describing their status. A yoke is for animals, not sons. Solomon had treated God's free people like beasts of burden. And they were asking Rehoboam to recognize their humanity. Here's the theological deep dive. God hates a heavy yoke on his children. Throughout the prophets, whenever God talks about delivering his people, he talks about breaking the yoke. In Leviticus 26:13, God says, I broke the bars of your yoke and enabled you to walk with heads held high. Rehoboam is standing there and he has the chance to be the image of God. He has the chance to be a burden lifter. This is what the godly king does. He uses his strength to carry the load for the weak. Think about Jesus again. Being a king doesn't mean you don't have a yoke. Jesus said, take my yoke upon you. But the difference is the fit. Jesus' yoke is easy. That word in Greek means well-fitting or kind. It doesn't chafe. It's designed for you. It's a partnership where he pulls the heavy weight. The people at Shechem were begging for a Christ-like figure. They were begging for grace. Give us a little grace, and we are yours forever. Rehoboam hears this, and what does he do? He stalls. He says, go away for 3 days, then come back to me. 3 days. In the Bible, 3 days is usually the time for resurrection. Jonah in the fish, Jesus in the tomb. It's the time it takes to go from death to life. Rehoboam takes 3 days, but he isn't moving toward life. He's taking 3 days to decide if he wants to be a shepherd or a wolf. And let's be honest, if you were confronted by an angry mob demanding relief, would you have the discipline to hit pause, or would you react in the heat of the moment? Put pause or react in the chat. The tension in that camp must have been unbearable. Families sitting in tents, wondering if the new boss is the same as the old boss, wondering if their sons would have to go back to the timber forests, wondering if God had heard their cry. And meanwhile, behind closed doors, Rehoboam isn't praying. He isn't opening the Torah to see what God says about kingship. He's holding a staff meeting. And this is where the tragedy shifts from possibility to a certainty. Because when you have 3 days to think, who you listen to determines where you end up. So the clock is ticking. The people are waiting in their tents. And Rehoboam is in the war room. He turns first to the old guard, the elders who had stood before his father Solomon. Don't gloss over who these men are. They aren't just old people. They are the survivors of the glory days. They saw the wisdom of Solomon firsthand. They also saw the rot. They watched the kingdom expand, but they also watched the people break. They knew that the glossy finish on the palace walls was paid for by the sweat of broken men. They understood the fragile reality of the kingdom better than anyone. Rehoboam asked them, how do you advise me to answer these people?
The kingdom stands at a precipice. The northern tribes demand relief. Tell me, you who knew my father's heart, how do I answer them?
Their response is one of the most profound pieces of political wisdom in the entire Bible. They tell him, If you will be a servant to these people today and serve them, and speak good words to them when you answer them, then they will be your servants forever. Stop and let that sink in. In the ancient Near East, kings were gods. They didn't serve, they were served. They didn't speak good words, they barked commands. For these elders to suggest the king of Israel should become a servant was revolutionary. It was scandalous. But look at the theology here. The elders are tapping into a deep kingdom principle that runs from Genesis to Revelation. The way up is down. Real leaders don't force people to follow them. People choose to follow them. They were telling Rehoboam, submit yourself to the good of the people and you will win their hearts. Does that sound familiar? It should. These elders were unknowingly preaching the gospel. They were outlining the very path Jesus would take. Jesus, the King of Kings, didn't come to be served, but to serve. He washed feet. He spoke good words. He healed the sick. And because he humbled himself to the point of death, God exalted him. The elders were offering Rehoboam a chance to be a Christ-like king, a shepherd who bleeds for the sheep. They offered him a trade, 1 day of humility for a lifetime of loyalty. Serve them today, they will serve you forever. Rehoboam stands at a crossroads, but it's not just about policy, it's about identity. The elders offered him the path of the shepherd, sacrificial, humble and secure. The young men offered him the path of the wolf, predatory, insecure and loud. Rehoboam couldn't stomach the seventh path. The text says he forsook their counsel. He didn't just disagree, he abandoned it. It tasted like weakness to him. His pride couldn't handle the idea of bowing to the people he thought he owned. So he turns to the young men who had grown up with him. This is the echo chamber. These guys are his peers. They aren't bad because they are young. They are dangerous because they are sheltered. They grew up in the palace, eating the finest food, wearing the softest clothes, completely insulated from the suffering of the common man. They had no idea what the heavy yoke feels like. To them, the kingdom isn't a responsibility, it's an inheritance, a playground. This is a dangerous spot. Ask yourself right now, do you have people in your inner circle who aren't afraid to tell you you are wrong? Or do you just have fans? That distinction changes everything. And they know exactly how to push Rehoboam's buttons. They don't appeal to wisdom, they appeal to his insecurity. They tell him to go back to the people and say this, my little finger is thicker than my father's waist. It's a crude, arrogant boast. In the original Hebrew, the word for waist or loins can imply the reproductive organs. It's a locker room contest. He is saying, you thought my father was a man, I'm twice the man he was. My pinky has more power than his whole body. It shows he was deeply insecure, but trying to look strong. Then they gave him the policy to back up the boast. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions. He's not talking about bugs here. A scorpion was a specific type of whip used on animals. It had pieces of lead, bone, or glass tied to the end of the lashes. When it hit, it didn't just leave a welt. It tore out chunks of flesh. It was an instrument of torture. In that moment, he decided that his ego was more important than God's people. He chose the scorpions. The sun rose on the third day over Shechem, and the tension in the air was electric. You have to picture the scene. This wasn't a random boardroom meeting. This was a massive outdoor assembly. Thousands of tribal leaders, fathers and laborers stood with their arms crossed, waiting. They were hopeful. They remembered the elders' advice. They probably thought, surely the son of Solomon has enough wisdom to give us a break. Surely he sees that we are at the breaking point. Rehoboam stepped up to the platform. He looked out at the sea of faces. Men who had carried the stones of his father's temple. Men whose backs were scarred from the work. This was his moment. He could have been the hero. He could have been the healer.
My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions.
A kingdom divided by pride and prophecy.
To your tents, O Israel. What portion have we in David?
Instead, he chose to be the hammer. He didn't just deliver bad news, he delivered an insult. He looked them in the eye and shouted the words his drinking buddy said scripted for him. My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add to your yoke. My father disciplined you with whips, but I will discipline you with scorpions. It was a catastrophic miscalculation. He forgot one critical thing. These were not slaves. These were the people of God. They were the descendants of men who had walked out of Egypt because they refused to bow to a tyrant. The silence that followed must have been terrifying. And then, the explosion. The reaction wasn't a negotiation. It wasn't a debate. It was a divorce. Proverbs says, a harsh word stirs up anger. We've all seen this destroy a relationship. Has a harsh word ever cost you a friendship or a job? It happens faster than we think. The cry went up from the crowd, a shout that echoed all the way back to the days of the judges. What portion do we have in David? We have no inheritance in the son of Jesse. To your tents, O Israel. Look now to your own house, David. This is one of the saddest moments in the entire Old Testament. To your tents was the ancient dismissal. It meant we are done. The contract is void. You go your way, we go ours. In seconds, the United Kingdom, the dream of Moses, the conquest of Joshua, the song of David was shattered. 10 tribes walked away. Just like that, Rehoboam didn't just miss the signal, he misread the room entirely. In his delusion, he thought their anger was just noise, a temporary tantrum that force could fix. He thought he was still in control, and this is where the story gets violent. The text tells us that Rehoboam sent Adoniram to the people. Remember Adoniram? He was the superintendent of forced labor. He was the face of the operation. He was the guy who had been cracking the whip for 40 years. Sending Adoniram to calm down a riot about forced labor is like throwing a lit match into a pool of petrol. It shows just how out of touch Rehoboam was. He thought he could just send the enforcer and everyone would get back in line. But the people didn't get in line. They picked up stones. In a gruesome scene, they stoned Adoniram to death right there in the open. They killed the symbol of their slavery. It was a clear message to Rehoboam, we are not bluffing. Rehoboam finally woke up. He realized this wasn't a game. He scrambled into his chariot and fled for his life back to Jerusalem. The king of Israel was running from his own people. Theologically, this moment is heavy. When the people shouted, what portion do we have in David? They were rejecting God's promise. Theologically, this moment is heavy. When the people shouted, what portion do we have in David? They were rejecting God's promise. They were walking away from the family line that would lead to the Messiah. It's a tragedy of leadership that led to a tragedy of faith. Because of one man's pride, the people felt they had to separate themselves from God's chosen dynasty just to survive. It makes you think of the Gospels, doesn't it? Centuries later, another crowd would gather before a Roman governor. They would look at the true son of David, Jesus. But unlike Rehoboam, Jesus hadn't threatened them with scorpions. He had offered them life. He hadn't come to enslave them. He had come to set them free. Yet the crowd shouted, we have no king but Caesar. Here at Shechem, the people rejected the bad shepherd who tried to crush them. In Jerusalem, the people rejected the good shepherd who came to save them. It shows the devastating power of sin. It ruins leadership through pride, and it ruins followership through rebellion. Rehoboam's scorpion speech didn't just split the country, it broke the family of God in two, creating a wound that would never heal until the cross. So the dust settles. Adoniram is dead, his blood staining the stones at Shechem. Rehoboam is hiding behind the fortified walls of Jerusalem, his heart pounding in his chest, and the map of the Middle East has been redrawn permanently. In the north, the 10 tribes crown Jeroboam as their king, forming the kingdom of Israel. In the south, all that is left of the house of David is his own tribe, Judah, and the small tribe of Benjamin. The glory of Solomon's empire was evaporated overnight. From a political standpoint, this isn't just a disaster, it's an amputation. The map didn't just change, The covenant nation was severed in two. The dream of a united people of God singing the Psalms of David together in Jerusalem was dead. But then, the writer of 1 Kings drops a sentence that stops us cold. It forces us to rethink everything we just witnessed. Verse 15 says, "So the king did not listen to the people, for this turn of events was from the Lord, to fulfill the word the Lord had spoken to Jeroboam." Wait a minute. This turn of events was from the Lord? This is a hard pill to swallow. Do we believe God still uses our failures to write history? Or do we just suffer the consequences? I'd love to hear your take on this theology in the comments. This brings us to one of the most difficult and beautiful tensions in all of Scripture. We like to think that God's will is always done through obedience, through good people making good decisions. But here, Scripture pulls back the curtain and shows us that God is so sovereign, so powerful, that He can advance His plan even through the catastrophic failures of sinful men. This wasn't an accident. God wasn't surprised by Rehoboam's choice. In fact, this split was prophesied years earlier. The prophet Ahijah had found Jeroboam walking in a field, wearing a new cloak. Ahijah took that new cloak and violently tore it into 12 pieces. He gave 10 pieces to Jeroboam and said, "Take 10 pieces for yourself, for this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. See, I'm going to tear the kingdom out of Solomon's hand and give it 10 tribes. Why? Because of Solomon's idolatry. Solomon had built temples to foreign gods, to Ashtoreth and Molech, right there in Jerusalem. He had compromised the spiritual integrity of the nation. God is a jealous God. He will not share His glory with idols. The kingdom had been torn because the heart of the king had been torn away from God. So here is the mind-blowing theological reality. Rehoboam's pride was his own. He is fully responsible for his arrogance. He chose the scorpions. He chose the harsh words. But God, in His infinite wisdom, used Rehoboam's sin to execute His judgment. God didn't force Rehoboam to be a fool. God simply withdrew His restraining grace and allowed Rehoboam to be who he really was. And through that folly, the word of the Lord was fulfilled. Rehoboam, of course, doesn't understand this yet. He thinks this is just a rebellion that he can crush. He gathers an army, 180,000 choice warriors from Judah and Benjamin. He is ready to march north and start a bloody civil war to force the tribes back under his yoke. He is ready to kill his brothers to save his ego. But then, the word of God comes again, this time through a prophet named Shemaiah. He stands before the army and delivers a message from Yahweh. "You shall not go up or fight against your relatives, the people of Israel. Every man return to his home, for this thing is from me. This thing is from me." That phrase is the anchor in the storm. The division, the loss, the heartbreak, it was from Him. Not because He loves chaos, but because He loves holiness. He was surgically removing the cancer of idolatry that had infected the throne. And yet, in the middle of this judgment, there is a glimmer of mercy that points directly to Jesus. Did you notice the math? Ahijah gave Jeroboam 10 tribes. That leaves 2. But Ahijah said he would leave 1 tribe to the son of Solomon. Why? So that my servant David will always have a lamb before me in Jerusalem. The lamb. This is the Christocentric lens that changes how we see this disaster. God tore the kingdom apart, but He did not blow out the candle. He preserved the remnant. He kept Judah alive, not because Rehoboam deserved it. He clearly didn't, but because God had made a promise to David. He promised that a king would come from his line to rule forever. If God gave Rehoboam what he deserved, the house of David would have been wiped off the face of the earth that day. But God is faithful even when we are faithless. He preserved the tribe of Judah, the tribe of the lion, the tribe from which the Messiah would be born. The split kingdom is a picture of our broken world. We are divided by pride, separated by sin, tearing each other apart. But in the midst of the wreckage, God kept the lamp burning. He kept the line open. He ensured that one day a king would arrive who wouldn't just rule over 2 tribes or 12 tribes, but would gather people from every tribe, tongue, and nation into a kingdom that can never be divided. Rehoboam broke the kingdom of Israel, but the lamp of David, Jesus Christ, would eventually come and heal the world. The tragedy of the split sets the stage for the glory of the reunion. But for now, the people go to their tents, the army goes home, and the sun sets on a divided land. The golden age is over. The age of the prophets has begun. It's easy to sit back and read 1 Kings 12 and shake our heads at Rehoboam. We look at his arrogance, his insecurity, and his catastrophic failure, and we think, what a fool. I would never do that. But if we are honest, brutally honest, Rehoboam isn't just a historical villain, he's a mirror. We live in a culture that is obsessed with a young man's counsel. Think about it. We curate our lives to create the perfect echo chamber. Our social media, we follow people who agree with us. In our inner circle, we keep friends who validate us. When we face a hard decision, how often do we truly seek the elders, the people who will tell us the hard truth that hurts our ego? Or do we shop for advice until we find the person who says you are right? You should be mad. You should flex your power. We are Rehoboam every time we choose validation over wisdom. Hit the like button if you've ever had to learn the hard way that pride crushes while humility builds. It's a lesson we all learn eventually. The tragedy of the scorpion speech plays out everywhere. We see this in our boardrooms. Leaders who believe strength means never apologizing, who build empires on the backs of their employees. We see it in our churches. Congregations split because the pastor demanded loyalty without offering love. We see it in our homes, parents ruling with a heavy hand, crushing their children's spirits. In every domain, the pattern is the same: domination masquerading as strength, followed by the inevitable "to your tents" as people walk away. The elders gave Rehoboam the secret to the universe. Serve them today. It is the most counterintuitive truth in the world. In our modern hustle culture, we think service is for the weak and dominance is for the strong. We think if we don't flex, we'll lose. But the gospel reveals that humility isn't weakness. It's the only thing strong enough to hold a kingdom or a family or a church together. This is where the theology hits the pavement. We cannot be the leaders, parents, or friends we need to be if we are fueled by insecurity. Rehoboam acted tough because he felt small. He bragged about his little finger because he was terrified he couldn't measure up to his father's waist. He tried to fill the gap in his soul with the submission of others. We do the same thing, but here's the good news. We don't have to. We don't have to prove we are big. We don't have to secure our identity by dominating others, because we have a king who already proved his power by stripping himself of it. Jesus is the entire Rehoboam. He had all the power in the universe. He could have summoned 12 legions of angels to enforce his rule with cosmic scorpions, but he didn't. He took off his outer robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, and washed the dirt from the feet of the men who would betray him. He served them, and because he served them, 2,000 years later, billions of us are still saying, "We will serve you forever." The mirror of Rehoboam asks us a question today. What kind of kingdom are you building? Are you building it on pride, insecurity, and the need to be right? Or are you building it on the towel and the basin? Are you lightening the heavy yoke of those around you? Or are you adding to it? The world is full of Rehoboams. It is full of broken relationships, split churches, and toxic cultures. It is desperate for a different kind of leader. It is desperate for the spirit of the seventh king. The story of the divided kingdom is a tragedy, but it leaves us with a choice. We can double down on our own pride and watch our world fracture, or we can embrace the wisdom of the towel. The heavy yoke of sin and self-preservation will always tear us apart, but the easy yoke of Jesus binds us together. If you are tired of carrying the weight of your own ego, drop it today. Look to the King who served you to the death. If you are ready to trade the heavy yoke of ego for the easy yoke of Jesus, type restoration in the comments below. Let that be your declaration today. Subscribe to join us as we explore more stories of how God works through history's wreckage. The kingdom of heaven is open. Come and find your rest.